Okay guys, so we're here and I have already produced the result, and I'm just going to break down a little bit how I go about creating this kind of representation. I'll just get rid of certain layers that are not used. So in principle, my process entails the overlay of many exports from a rendering software. That could be either V-Ray, it could be Lumion, it could be Enscape, Corona, you name it. This doesn't show because it's on multiply. Okay, so for example, you see that in reality, this looks like a raw export of materials without any shadows and without any ambience. And I set it to 29 because it adds some definition to the image. And at the same time, I have exported an ambient layer from Enscape. So I've been working on this in Revit and using Enscape to render. So here we have the ambience of it. It's set on 30, and then I put the material on 29. We can do 30. Sometimes I just randomly place the node according to my liking, so that's why the numbers can be a bit random. That's okay as well. Let's see what we got here. So we got ambient again, but it's a different one. So if we compare this ambient to this one, this is an ambient that has shadows from one side, and this is at a different time of the day. And then it's not like it's a particular technique that is by the book. It's more like my way to experiment with different layers and see how playing with different layers you can come up with something that you like. So it's all about forgetting the rules. This will multiply. It's all about forgetting the rules and going with what you think is closer to what you're going for. So I'm just changing the settings to show you what I'm working with. Again, this is another ambient. So we got already 3 ambients, 1, 2, and 3. Again, set on multiply, but this one has a different opacity of 38%. You would be asking why and how. It's more about looking at the result as you build up. So you start kind of like a painter. They start with some colors and then they refine and add more color, and something that is shapeless starts to have more shape. Let's see what this one is. This one happens to be an export with both materials and shadows. So before I had separate material here and separate ambient shadows, but here I happen to have a full export, which was, let's see, I guess it was multiply 38, I forgot, but anyway, it's okay. And then I again multiplied this one because I thought, oh, so maybe I need to make this 48. Yeah, that's better. I don't need this one. Let's see what this layer is. This is a layer, an export that has no material. It's a white overlay, but there is some shadow. And it's the edge setting that comes with Enscape. So basically, Enscape allows you to render edges if you so wish to. And this is, right, okay. So this is an edge export, and I have erased certain parts where I want the shadows to be. Okay. strong shadows. What is this? Oh yeah, that's really strong. So everything is on multiply because we want the darker shades to go on top so that we are actually creating something. But then with curves, we are brightening things up. So we have a lot of ambient shadows. We have created an atmosphere that would not have been able to be produced by just one, because none of them by themselves have this kind of ambience. You see how this is by itself? It's very dark and sharp. But with overlaying different modes of things, materials, shades, edges, we're able to produce this kind of effect. It starts off being quite dark, but then you can again balance it by adding a curves layer. So if your layer starts like this, usually that's how it starts, which is also nice. It depends on what's the look you're going for. You can start moving things up, see how sharp you want things. Let's say I want something like this. And then I put another layer, levels, on top to brighten things up a bit more so that things don't look burned. But yeah, usually the setting is here. Maybe this. And then it's up to you how you like this. That's why these numbers cannot be infinite. I cannot give you a particular set of numbers that's going to make sure you have a perfect result, because your renders are probably going to have different sets of materials, different sets of lighting. So it's more about your feeling about things, trying. This is a grainy paper texture that I set on lighten 10% to make it even more soft, and then a kind of grungy brass effect. Aha. I see. Oh. Wow. Wow. I don't even remember how I did this. Okay, cool. So apparently, what I've done on top of everything, the reason I get a bit surprised is because I don't even remember how I did this. It's very instinctive, and by showing you my process, I'm just introducing you to a way of doing things that might be counterintuitive, and it's more of an artistic process rather than exactly knowing what you're doing. Knowing what you're doing is overrated. Okay, so things start to get a bit tricky after this point. I have applied the gradient layer that is black on this side and white on this, so there is a gray zone and the dark part that, let's do this. This is the gradient, and then I have went over with a brush tool and have created a mask. Actually, I have erased part of the opacity so that I can create a textured look, as you can see. So it's good that you have access to different kinds of brushes that have textures that allow you to create. The difference, I guess, with this kind of textures, this kind of, oh, what's happening here? We don't want this. We don't want this either. We want to be here in RGB. Okay, so I deleted my mask. I didn't want to do that. Yes, over here. So what having a good brush allows, instead of just having a pattern like this, it gives you more control over how you want to texturize something. Because if I create a layer mask and then I start erasing or adding things, I have a lot of control. And then what actually creates the texture is the brush. Let's say this is a texture, right? And then you can have control over how you want to texturize. So I use the watercolor brush. Maybe something like this. Let me find it. It's been a while. Yeah. And then you can play with the opacity and apply. Always use pressure for opacity. Okay, it applies the pressure of your mouse. And then if you go over the mask with a white color, wherever there was black, now is going to bring back the gradient at its full opacity. But then if you choose black, it erases that aspect, right? And if you choose gray, it brings it up again at 50%. So you can really take ownership in how you texturize things here as well. And you see, you can create this interesting effect. And then what I did, because the gradient went on and created an atmosphere, too much ambience over here, for example. Here it's not so bad, but the more we go up, that is the dark, the black part of the gradient, it looks like there is a mist surrounding the space, taking over the space. So what I did, I selected the objects and I applied shadows to them so that they can again come up in the picture instead of being surrounded by this graphic mist that we have created. The same here, it's just solid colors with opacity. Let's see, what is this one? Over here, let's see. Hue. I seem to have wanted to change the color a little bit, but it's not that obvious. In any case, I don't know why I kept this. You see, it's all about experimenting and making mistakes. And then for the ground, I had a vision of a brighter, not ground, sorry, a brighter floor. So I just go on and add the gradient to separate this surface from the rest of the objects that now seem to not be completely defined in the way that they should be. And then I go on the same layer mask and I apply a brightening levels layer. And then on the whole image, I apply a curves layer that is making things a bit more crispy and darkening certain bright parts that are too bright right now. And then I apply a gray color fill and I use the hue setting so that I can correct the colors a little bit, because now certain colors are too warm for my liking. So then if I apply this hue layer and then I choose the parts that I wish to have this color correction, then we get this result. You can do this in many ways. If you select your desired objects, you can just apply a hue saturation layer. It could have the same result. Just for me, sometimes I like to work with solid fills. I like to work with colors. It has been part of my process for a long time. But there are many ways to reach the same result in Photoshop, and it has to do with the way you think and the way you create. And this bright layer, this is to make certain surfaces that are supposed to be white stick out more, like the curtains over here and this screen over here. It's supposed to be a fabric that goes down. And then using gradients to colorize, to take some ownership over the colors. Take some ownership, I don't know if I can say that, but yeah. To color correct where you want. and brighten, and again make certain elements more prominent, and then add a vibrance layer. This is too much, maybe. Let's see. And then I wanted to change his shirt. And his shirt. Yeah, and again, accentuating certain elements that, because of previous adjustments, they have kind of been toned down, like this much over here. So redefining the objects, and then applying color balance, because the vibrance we have input has created certain blue hues here that we don't like. We want to bring it back to more brownish. And this photo filter is the sepia one that I like to apply to create warmth. And with this gradient, I'm again creating atmosphere. Ah, yes, and this is the part that creates interesting results, is applying the line art. So I have this grouping. Let's make another group for these to see the difference. So everything can be blurry and ambient, but if you're able to apply a coherent line art, this is exported from Revit as well, things start coming together. It's all about overlaying things, correcting the colors once more, creating more contrast where we want it to be. I'm going for a kind of golden brown tone, adding the text, office, Pilates studio, esthetician. Adding some more texture that is, it's not super visible, but it does create a bit more of a watercolor paper effect, and brightening things up a bit more on this side with this gradient, or it's on this side. I like to create gradients for the edges of things, either from the top or from the bottom, but it's just the way that I find things to be aesthetically pleasing, but you could completely skip that. It's really a matter of how you like your images to look. So, and then what I did, I duplicated all the previous layers, I merged them, and then I multiplied them. What it does is it darkens a little bit certain hues, and then I'm not sure what I did here. But yeah, this is about it. This is a real project that I designed in Tokyo, and we have finished the second floor. The third floor also has been assembled with instead of doing this composite structure, my clients chose to recreate the layout by buying furniture instead, because it's more economical and fits their budget. And then for this space as well, they kept the arrangement of things but chose to go for cheaper furniture and things they could buy. But for this floor, we kept these curvilinear rooms for the treatment tables. What we couldn't go with was this this curvilinear reception with this brassy showcase furniture. But most of the principles have been kept, just made budget friendly. So this is an introduction to this one, which I will recreate in detail for you. I had done it before, but unfortunately my video has been lost, so this will be the introduction, and then after seeing your feedback, I'm going to recreate the effect, how I went essentially from, to see what we're working with. If we take one potential render, then what we did is we basically went from this which is a raw render with no shadows, or even if you take a shaded render, to this much more sophisticated and soft kind of drawing, fusion between drawing and render. From this to this. That's it for now. Thank you for listening and see you on the next one.